Thank you for tuning in to Androna Talks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Androna Talks.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have a special report regarding France and what's going on over there. Today I will be speaking with a guest by the name of Chris, and he is from Belgium, but he currently living in the United States. So we're just going to have a discussion about his perspective of what's going on, and stay tuned in and listen very closely. There's some very, very interesting points he wants to share with you. So hello, Chris. How are you today?
I'm good. Hello, Jess. Nice to be here.
All right. So, we were having a discussion earlier, and I asked you if you had been following what's been going on over there, and it seems like there's quite a bit of activity, and I don't know. I mean, France has always been through these ups and downs where the people do know how to speak up for themselves. This is something that historically they're very good at, and when they see something that's not quite right. So, yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's a complex situation over there, but obviously it's extremely important what's going on, and I think it's really connected to what's happening globally on the planet. It's not just locally in France. It's pretty much happening in parallel with what's going on here in the US. For the longest time, we thought that the Europeans, and especially the European community, were pretty locked in their globalist agenda, and most of the people had no idea of what was going on, really. They pretty much live like in a fishbowl. Now, France, you're right, they are known to have strikes every week for anything. These people have no problem to go in the street and protest every time they're unhappy. But what's happening here, it's absolutely different from everything we've seen in the past. I would say we have to go back pretty much in, first I'm going to explain that to myself. I lived for 40 years in Belgium, and at the time, you grow up there, you live in a system that you don't question really, you have these political parties, right, left, like it is here, and you believe that, when you vote for right wings, when I mean right wings, what we call Republican here, they might be more for the rich people, and if you're more for the from like blue collar, like my family, they weren't rich at all. I mean, grandfathers were like people that had their own business. My parents started very poor. We were living in a very poor neighborhood as well, but they worked very hard to finally end up having a comfortable life, I would say. I was living in a family that at the time was pretty much what we would call here, socialist, right? But not communist. It has nothing to do with that. But at the end of the day, they were voting for parties that at the end, we believed were helping the people and trying to give a bit of life to the regular people. So 40 years of that, you used to have everything pretty much, I would say, free, meaning, yes, you have free college, not free dentist, but you may pay $20 for a dentist and $20 for a doctor and all that. So it's great. Now, what people don't understand is that you are highly taxed. We don't even know what the gross salary is most of the time. We only know what the net is, and they tax you around 50, sometimes 60% if you're a regular employee, right? If you have a business, it can go from 75% to 90% tax. So, I mean, all these free stuff needs to be paid by someone. And we never really questioned that since we were enjoying life as long as each country had its own sovereignty. Belgium was Belgium, has its Belgian francs, France has its French francs, Italy has lira and all that, right? So for all thousands of years, I mean, we each country has its roots, its culture, and something very specific that was giving them an identity. Now, European Community officially started the euro currency, I think it was in 2001. I'm not sure on the date, but I remember at the time I was working in the bank. And I remember the feeling of, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to travel. We're going to be able to have the same currency. It's going to be awesome. What we didn't realize is that overnight, the cost of life pretty much double, if not triple, literally. Because I remember when I had 1,000 Belgian francs, you could literally do a lot with that. But suddenly it became 40 euro. And 40 euro was for us like Mickey Mouse money. And suddenly you realize that a lot of companies and industries have taken advantage of the change of currency, and most of the people had no idea what was the new value, really, to triple and double the price on everything. So overnight, we have seen the cost of life triple and your salary being the same. So when before one person could work in the family and the mom could stay at home, suddenly that was not possible anymore. And literally overnight. So all that is part of a bigger plan, of course, that didn't start, in the last years. I was just watching a very interesting interview, and they were explaining that it started pretty much in the 30s when they have found they caught 3 Nazi spies, and they found that they had documents with them. And on these documents, there were a lot of information on a specific plan. Now, it was connected to the National Socialist Party of Germany that started pretty much the same way things started here in the US. I mean, in these last 8 to 10 years, people here don't have the history and the knowledge of history that like we have in Europe. So they have no idea what's going on, like with this Antifa and all that stuff. All that is not new. It started in the 30s as well. It's the same thing. It's the same playbook. So on these papers, they found that the information was talking about the fact that they were planning, of course, to Hitler at the time was starting to rise in power, and he wanted to do the Oberland, which was pretty much to extend Germany to pretty much whole Europe, including the UK and all that. So this is pretty much what it started. When he started the war, he started to invade, I guess, some country, Poland and so on. First it was Austria, and then Poland, and so on, and France, Belgium, Spain, and so on, and Italy, working with Mussolini that was embracing the same type of agenda. What has nothing to do with nationalist, it's social nationalist. It's completely different. It simply explained that the government takes the power and is really decide for the people. You have no more sovereignty at all as an individual. So on this paper, they're explaining that that was the plan, and then eventually it will lead to a point where, I don't remember the detail, but I don't know if they've explained that, they would lose, but even if they lose, the plan will continue where they would still get to the point of having that Huberland, or that big Germany, embracing that social nationalist program by creating a European community where all countries were pretty much get together, and then have a European government that would control each country. Now, that couldn't be done overnight, of course. So one of the Nazi being there at the time, and I don't remember his name, and I'm so sorry for that because I didn't prepare. Really, it was last minute, this this report, but
that's right.
was a gentleman. That's the if we look online, who created the European Community. I think it's a German gentleman that was part of the Nazi Party, and after the war, he created an association which was, we say in French, community of I try to translate. It's kind of connected to the steel and coal organization, European organization, and that was in the 50s. Now, after that, they signed the Treaty of Rome, and that was the beginning of the European community, the very foundation, I would say, of it. Now, when they signed that treaty, at the time, you had that gentleman that was the one that started that program, which is the European Community Program, part originally of the Nazi Party. And he is known as the founder of the European Community and the one that really initiated that Treaty of Rome. Now,
would
of course,
would his name be Schuman?
Schuman is a Belgian guy.
Okay,
there was a few others. Robert Schuman is Belgian, yeah. So there was a few people. He was one of them, and then I guess if we check online on Wikipedia, Treaty of Rome, you will see pretty much the name of the founder.
According to the
West Wall or West Hall or something like that.
Maastricht Treaty. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. And
that was in the 80s, 90s, right? Maastricht.
Okay.
The Treaty of Maastricht is when they opened all the borders. Suddenly there was no borders between countries in Europe. Yeah, they did everything by stage, you know. It didn't happen overnight. So we can maybe check eventually, while I'm talking.
I'm looking at the different names. There's a SPOC
50s.
committee. There's all sorts of SPOC report. And
maybe if you look Treaty of Rome, I have a feeling you might.
Treaty of Rome during
some information.
Treaty of Rome regarding the European Union. Well, anyhow,
so they started, of course, slowly. Now they did the Treaty of Maastricht, which was it's a city in Holland, when they all gathered and decided to open all the borders between France, Belgium. Some countries kept their border closed, like Switzerland, England, I guess, as well, because they were part of the European community but didn't share the euro. They still kept their currency. And a few other countries refused. I don't know if it's Norway or Sweden, one of those. You've been over there, right? So they still use the krone, right? In Norway and in Sweden?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what happened is that they create, when the final nail in the coffin was literally the currency, the common currency for everyone. Now, they had also to make sure to impoverish, literally, because there is no other way to explain that, because I don't care what the explanation they give, but if you check the reality of things, it's pretty much what's happened here. These last 10, 15 years, when the farmers start to work more and more, and they work like 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours a week, and are in debt at the end of the month. They don't make money at all.
I mean, this is happening worldwide.
It's happening worldwide. Yes.
But this happened prior to the revolution. This has happened in different phases where they try to create a government that, they try to shift things in a certain way, but it seems like there's always a gain for the elite, and everyone else is scrambling, trying to see if they can make ends meet. It's like the Industrial Revolution, and people started, instead of working their farms, started working for companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like the working for some of these car industries, vehicle industries, where they're just lined up and doing all sorts of
well, if you start to remove the jobs in the rural parts of I will talk for France, for example, Belgium. The real foundation of a nation is not the government, is the people, the regular people, farmers.
Without the people,
workers.
you can't. It doesn't happen.
No,
it can't happen.
That's the entity itself of a country. It's its people. And so they have started to remove slowly, the sovereignty of moving literally how can I explain that? Moving the money from, blocking people from making money, literally through all these treaties they did between the countries, right? When, for example, if you grow crops of wheat in Belgium or in France, you cannot sell it in France. You need to sell it for a certain price in another country, and then you need to buy it from another country. So at the end of the day, you're not even able to work and enjoy the fruits of your labor anymore. So that's one. Two, they start to move pretty much the power of the people into the cities, into the government. So the government start to have more and more power and pretty much empty the rural places, like, the country, the farmers, the little villages. And I've seen it myself when I was going on vacation south of France on little villages. Suddenly, when the post office start to close, now you have to drive 20 miles to go to the next post office in a bigger city. The schools start to close. So all these little villages start to be emptied of everything that was pretty much its original structure. And so people need to drive further to find job, to be able to sometimes even have a doctor. Hospitals were closing. So all these rural places start to be, it's like almost like a desertification of the rural places. So now people have to move towards the city, where it's easier, of course, to control them. Right? You had that interview with Jimmy, the other interview where they were talking about the smart cities. Well,
correct.
That's part of the Agenda 2021, where pretty much in order to control the population, first you need to move them from the rules, locations, bring them in the cities, and everything will be very defined where people can live, and it's going to be way easier to control them.
And we were trying to figure out how could they possibly manage this, because they're going to need manpower, but if it's not manpower, they're androids. And currently in Japan, they're already incorporating, a kind of a more simplistic variation of that, where humans are kind of being eased out of position, and they're putting some kind of automated, simplistic robotics in place, and for them that's a solution. And even for greeting people and working in hotels, and it's almost like you don't, and they're able to interact enough that you get the information that you need. So, like I said, the shocking thing to me was that whole piece about humans being replaced, that their intention, Mobius, was intending to replace humans with these androids. So, as humans, as human society, mankind, trying to survive on the planet right now, and trying to figure out what in the world is going on. They've gone through these phases before, where the income level has been less than inviting. A person cannot survive. It's referred to as a non-living wage. That means you cannot pay your bills, you cannot rent anywhere, unless all of your income goes into your apartment or rental, or some people they can't even come close to a mortgage, and so this is happening, and that's one way they push people out. They increase the wage, they lower the wage or keep the wage at status quo, inflate everything else, and then people can't afford anything. So you say that doesn't even make any sense. Well, it does if you have very little regard for humanity. So then people then become incensed. Well, what's wrong with us? Why are we not, treated in such a way that we deserve? And so there's a question, it's humane. But the problem is we're not getting humane treatment. And so, which is as a result of what we're seeing right now play out. It's the scenario that's going over in Sweden, the problem that's happening in California. They literally just killed people with lasers. Is anyone even watching this? I mean, that is cold-blooded murder. That is, if another nation came in and did that, that's a war. I mean, what in the world? Why is this happening, right? So let's take a look at now. You had this explanation about the yellow jackets because I said, "What is the deal with the yellow jackets?" And so you started to explain how this is part of
the
the
European Community.
required attire, right, for
Yep. So
being
now,
in any vehicle.
so now getting back to what's happening now, they had a president called. They have different president. It doesn't matter if they were left or right. It's the same as here. They were all working for the same agenda, which is the Rothschild agenda in Europe. It's very strong. I'm not gonna lie. Serving the central banks and all that stuff, right? So they were definitely slowly moving towards that agenda. Now, when the last president came, was a socialist called Holland. That guy, obviously, a lot of people thought, well, it's going to be great now. That guy's a socialist, so definitely he's going to work for the people. Well, he was barely present. I mean, they make fun of him because it's like he didn't even know. It's almost like he didn't even know that he was president. Literally, that's how deep his impact was on the country. So people were extremely pissed because never it happened in France that some regular families, what we call the middle class, started to be impoverished to a point where sometimes at the end of the month they had to go to the back of some supermarket or restaurant and, take some food that might be, like they trash food and things they don't eat anymore. And people were trying to get that type of food so they could fill up the fridge. So when the election started, they did the same at the time with President Chirac. There was a extreme right party called the guy was called Le Pen, and he has a daughter. So the father was a little bit extremist, anti-Semitist and all that. So nobody wanted to really have him around, but he was always fighting for France and for the roots and against European community. But it was a little bit too far right for sure. His daughter, I guess, had the same agenda, but still was a little bit smoother. So when the election started, I think was in 2017, well, there were only two parties for the primary. They went through the primaries and to the second tour, which was Le Pen, the daughter, which was for getting out of the European community, having French currency again, close all the borders, pretty much what Trump was doing here. But of course, they did a whole media. The media was, of course, working hand in hand with the power in place, and of course, trashed and like they did here, trashed that candidate. And the other guy was Macron. Now, what's interesting is that Macron, nobody knew about him. That guy popped up out of nowhere. Suddenly, all these politicians, most of the time, they're like 10 years, 20 years, part of the Senate or the Congress, or, and you know about them. That guy was out of nowhere, starts working for the one of the Rothschild bank. In 2 years, he went from junior associate to senior associate, which is normally takes years to do it, and start to have, his fingers in different cookie jar, and has a huge network of people, and he was definitely, groomed to be president. Now, I was listening to something that was interesting, is that 20 years ago, one of his mentor asked him, hey, what would you like to do when you grew up? And he said, well, I want to be president. And that was 20 years ago. And he said, why? He said, well, I want to be the king of a republic, which is kind of an oxymoron, because if you think about it, republic has no king, right? A few hundred years ago, the French went in the street and they had this exact same situation, what's happening now. A king and a queen that didn't care, were partying and having, all these aristocrats were having a wonderful life, and the people were barely eating. So
didn't Napoleon do that too?
To a certain point, but not exactly the same.
They have pictures of him, like, artwork of him as a king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with all these people. They want to be kings. All right, okay. Well, it's dangerous to be a king in France. The last one lost his head. So that's funny part is that when he came, suddenly he became in the government of Holland. Suddenly he became a minister. I think was Minister of Finance. And then suddenly out of nowhere, he presents himself as French people. I'm not right. I'm not left. I hear you. You need someone that will represent you. I'm the man. And everybody's like, wow, he's young. He's good looking. You know, the woman loved him. He's different from anybody else. But they didn't really push the information or who he was really and what agenda was, you know, who he was working with and who was supporting him. They didn't push that too much. So he won 66.6%. Now, look at that one, 666. Wow. And if you look at the inauguration, I mean, it's Illuminati symbols everywhere the day of the inauguration is as president. I mean, it's insane. They do all the symbols like the Hollywood celebrities. I mean, same thing. The horn with his fingers. I mean, it's like, wake up, people.
Yeah. Not to mention that Dionysus was so heavily present there. And people, like, you don't realize these deities are still around doing all the same stuff that they used to do. That's how it keeps coming back.
Listen, it's the same. You say that in English, same thing, but different flavor. I mean, at the end of the day, the people, what really where they messed it big time is that people were miserable. When they saw him, they had hope. And it's very dangerous to give hope to someone. That's
usually when it happens. Yeah, and when people are unhappy, it's like they supply somebody for them that looks like a borderline savior, you know?
Well, the same happened with Obama here. I mean, everybody thought the guy's going to save the country. And all he did was the exact opposite. So, I mean, now what's happening is the French people for this last year, the first thing he did when he came to power is to take away the tax that they had in France. They were taxing the rich people, like the very rich people. They had a tax. And the first thing he did was to take it out. So now these people are not taxed anymore. And of course, well, the money needs to come from somewhere. So it started to tax heavily the middle class and the poor and the blue workers. So of course, they were not very happy about that. And so they see the cost of life triple over time. They see their salary stagnating. There is no increase because of the inflation. There's no increase. Normally, you should have an increase of your salary. They don't see anything for years. By the 10th of the month, their fridge is empty. They can barely feed their kids. And the last drop in the bucket was the tax on diesel. Now, you need to understand.
That's what they're going through right now.
That was the last drop. They started because of that, and now that's what they realized. Wait a minute, these guys are completely disconnected from the people. They are there doing all these regulations, and supposedly they did that because of the global warming, which we know is the carbon tax, which we know where it comes from, and it has nothing to do with that hoax that is that global warming. That has been pretty much planified. This is part of the Agenda 21 as well. Anyway, so French people, when they saw that, it's what here they don't understand in America is that these people had to drive literally 50 miles to go find a job and be paid $900 to $1,000, maybe $1,200, working a whole week, busting their butt, and not being able to even have a fridge full at the end of the month. Yeah. So by increasing the price of the gas, they were like, well, okay, no, only we don't have enough to live, but now the expenses are growing. And I mean, this is impossible for us to continue living like that. So they started the yellow vest simply because in France, since a few years, you have different items required in your car in case you stop by the police. And one of them is a yellow vest, so that let's say your car breaks down, you put that yellow vest, so you are visible for the people driving, on the road. And you're visible, and it also shows that you are in danger and that, you need people to make sure that they can see you. So they decided to put this vest as a symbolic of we are in danger right now, and we want you, people up there, politicians, to see and hear us. that we are, we have demands here and we're not happy. So this
how
is
do you
why
say
it
the
started like
yellow vest in French?
Veste jaune.
Veste jaune.
Veste jaune, yeah. So it started with that tax on diesel and electricity, knowing the winter started, meaning that's when, it's going to cost you even more money. They have a 21% tax on electricity.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
So, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Now,
it's like trying to get water out of a rock, we say, right? I mean, how much more are you going to pull from the poor people? Where is the compassion and consciousness? It's
there's
like,
none.
while we were talking, Chris, I have a list of everyone that was the founding fathers of the EU. And one is Konrad Adenauer. Is that the gentleman you're looking for? West Germany?
He has glasses.
No, he doesn't. But I'll go down.
It's something like West Hall or West Wall or something like that.
Okay, well, I'll go down the list. Joseph Beck from Luxembourg. Johan Bayen from the Netherlands. Sorry if I'm butchering the accent. Winston Churchill. Alcide de Gasperi, Italian. Walter Hallstein.
Yeah, that's the one. Is that from Germany?
West Germany.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Sico Mansholt from the Netherlands. Jean Monnet from France. Robert Schuman from France. Paul Henry Spaak from Belgium. And Altiero Spinelli from Italy. So that's it.
So you have Italy, France, Belgium, Holland, and where else?
You have Winston Churchill here, so there's England. Yeah. West Germany, Netherlands, France, Luxembourg, and Belgium, Italy.
Yeah, I mean, it's even in Europe, they don't teach really. Well, they teach the Treaty of Rome and all that, but they don't go in depth of who was behind it, literally, and who was financing all that. I mean, it's literally all these people were pretty much embracing the social nationalist cause of the German at the time. It just, they lost the war supposedly, but they didn't. They just spread out. A lot of them went in the U.S.
We all know that those spaceships that were flying around the White House after the war was a proclamation that Germany was thriving and had, advanced tech. So
the best way to have a full control on people is to give them the illusion that they have freedom through supposedly, they won the war, right? So at that point, you don't pay any attention of anything. You're free, right? Well, you're not. It's an illusion. Now they can really control you. So they create that supposedly, democracy. But democracy is literally dictator in disguise.
But many of the nations, that they're probably the thought of joining together. And I'm not a European. I'm an American. So I'm just trying to have a better understanding of what. Possibly there were pros and cons in the whole concept, thinking that, we should be unified after war. We don't want to go to war anymore. So if we're entangled and financially and we're working together, then maybe that would be less likely for something like that to happen. But there's always another agenda. So with every positive, it seems that someone's always putting their hand in the cookie jar somehow and messing around with things. So it becomes corrupt. So regardless of what we do, it becomes corrupt. It's really not actually the European Union that is a problem. It is those that were trying to manipulate and manage it to benefit themselves, but never considering the people. I'm sure the individual leaders considered their own people, but now as the things are changing in a way, there's something happening to the consciousness of many of these leaders, where they're having less and less of a regard for what their people are going through. And yeah, Russia had a problem years ago. Their last, royals had a very, very bad run-in with the Bolsheviks because of this, of insensitivity of people. And Macron, seems to have this sort of elitist attitude and very insensitive to the people, and it's just something that will happen. You have to be mindful of these things, and for some reason, there's it's like a wave of energy, and I want to say that it's contributed by what Monarch and Mobius and some of these corporations are literally mind controlling, manipulating, and kind of trying to usher in another agenda at the expense of everyone, the common man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is beautiful to see here is that the layers of deception and illusion, pretty much, that, were so heavy on the population, it doesn't matter the country, if it's Europe or the US, start to be removed slowly. We know that, right? And it seems what was interesting for me to watch it's like the fourth weekend now that they have these protests. The first one, they said if at the time Macron would have listened and be like, okay, well, let's sit down and talk, they would have stopped. But they were even more infuriated because they realized that not only he didn't care, but he was treating the French people as they were whining because they had too much tax and they had to just shut up and take it. As we say in French, bend over and cough, literally. Right. It's what it is. So
then you say to the leaders, set an example. Let's see how you go on this amount of money. And that was always an argument that American, like, single mothers had in our society in the US. Is tell us how you can make a living off of this income right here.
Yeah.
And because people want to, they want to work, they're willing to work very hard if they get something in return. If they're working very hard and they still can't afford anything, there's a problem.
Well, if you think of the very, like here we have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that, but over there, when the Republic was founded, when they had the revolution in 1789, they wanted the people to be represented, to have representative of the people in the government, right? But of course that changed very quickly, and lately I was listening to the conversation that some of these people were interviewed in the street. They said, we realized that there are two different worlds here. We have the people of France and you have the government, and it's almost like they live on a different dimension. They don't even in connection with the people anymore. But they need to understand one thing: their salary is paid by us. They work for us. So at the end of the day, if we, the people, we're not happy with who represent us, well, guess what? We want to fire you. That's it. So we're tired of all these politicians doing all these games and going to Argentina, to the G20, because that's what Macron did. That's what exactly pissed them off, because this is while he's literally, sucking the blood of the people here, and the people are not making it. He is, walking like very proud in the G20, making all these friends and making all these deals, and pretending to be very powerful as a king of France. And in the same time, it's literally, I can literally see that the same thing happened in the 1700s when the revolution happened.
Marie Antoinette.
The royalty, I mean, they were so disconnected from the people that they didn't even know the people, or they didn't even care that the people didn't have even bread while they were having these, orgies of food and celebration. So the same thing is happening here. And they were, by the way, they were talking about it. They said, we invented the guillotine, and at this point, I mean, it's no different from 300 years ago, which is kind of scary to think about it. But they definitely are in the street now infuriated because they realized that not only Macron is not listening, and he even insulted them more, saying, "Hey, you know what? Okay, I'll hold off on that I'm going to give 6 months for that new tax. I'm going to wait for the summer, 6 months from now, and then maybe do it, maybe not in 6 months." And people are like, "Are you thinking we're stupid? We know that you just want to postpone that because of the European elections. So at the end of the day, you just take us for idiots." So right now, they're not fighting for the tax anymore. They're not fighting for that. They're fighting for a change, an absolute change, with no, like fake Macron or, fake politician that will, professional politician that will pretend that he's there to help the people. At the end of the day, he's there for himself. So again, we go to the same concept: service to self or service to others. And these people definitely have a service to self. So they are saying that obviously they were not stopped. Now, what happened today in Paris was pretty bad, because what they did to these people in Paris was horrible. Obviously, Macron wanted to show his strength and said that obviously you need to retain order. Absolutely, doesn't matter. So he brought 89,000 policemen into the country, and the whole country. And what they did, they knew that most of them are gathering towards the Champs-Élysées, which is the Elysian Field, I guess in English, trying to get to Palais Matignon, which is where the president is. And of course, they blocked all the streets. And what they did, they let the protester coming on the Champs-Élysées, and then they blocked every street. Once they were there, they were trapped, and they started to bombard them with tear gas, to a point where they had nowhere to go. They were driving, left and right on the Champs-Élysées, and it didn't matter where they went. They couldn't even rest and sit down and have some oxygen. That was so bad. Sadly, that will not calm them, because now they really feel like they treat them like animals. And right. I don't know where this is going. So I would love to see this, happening with, that change needs to happen, but with, in the most harmonious way possible. I just don't know how that's going to happen here, because it seems to be, do you know that even the police right now are doing so many hours overtime they're not paid for, that they took their helmets, a lot of them took their helmets off, showing the protesters, hey, the yellow jacket guys, we don't want to fight you. We are people like you, and we understand. That would be wonderful if the whole police and army start to understand to not play along and not follow the orders anymore.
This is why I say that it's ET agendas, because it's not normal. The real humans say that this isn't right to treat people like this. And I'm not just saying, you should, I know if you were in charge of government, I'm not condoning protesting and all this other stuff, but the people should be treated in a certain way. And I know that you can't have chaos like in the U.S. There's always a reason to have martial law. It's like the little simplest thing. I understand we can't really have things just going insane. And, because, being a Boston native in the U.S., if you have a little bit of confusion or protesting, it goes into a whole other thing where people start breaking store windows and pillaging, and just really, really bad behaviors. So I'm not condoning any of that kind of thing. But I am saying that there is a point where people are just hungry. And there's a time when they need to be heard. It doesn't seem normal for a government, if they have the power and the ability to assist and create a better economy, if they have that opportunity to allow the people to just sustain themselves, provide everything that they need. So it's almost like there's other entities involved in this that are creating a very, very uncomfortable scenario. And we really don't want to see Europe busting at the seams. We want to see that they're finding their solutions. And so that, just hearing, different things, like we've been hearing what's going on in Sweden, and through the EU, forced immigration and huge amounts of immigration, more than they can handle. And not only that, a demographic of military aged males without families and children. And then, of course, it's running into problems with, I think there was aggression, rape, and other types of violence. So, I mean, what is going on, right? So we have to step back and say there's a serious problem here.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do well to bring the subject of immigration now. Of course, the media are pretending, because they call it the revolution of the white French. It's not that. It's not about color. It's not about religion. It's not about that. It's not about right, left, poor, rich. They all say, which is beautiful when you hear these protesters, these yellow vests talking, they said, we are brothers and sisters. There is no rich, there is no poor, there is no yellow, you black, or this or that. It doesn't matter. We are French, we're brothers and sisters, and we fight for the same cause. We want our sovereignty back. And I thought, well, that seems to be, it seems that the human collective consciousness seems to wake up slowly to the fact that, yes, they're reclaiming their sovereignty and their freedom as divine beings. They don't know that yet, I'm sure. They're not really aware of why they feel like that, but I have a feeling there is definitely a change going on now. Talking about immigration, 40 billion euro in France has been, and that's why also the carbon tax, it's really money it doesn't go to the country at all. They know that. It's going most of the time for, making sure that they can open all the borders and having. Well, Macron said, I think was like a few months ago, he said that European France and Africa have the same roots, right? Supposedly all human come from Africa, right? So obviously. We have the same roots, we have a strong connection, so automatically now they have to come and we have to welcome them all in Europe. So they do that. It's like, if I have a glass of wine and every day I put a little drop more of water, after a while there will not be any wine anymore. That's pretty much what they try to do here with every country. They try to really erase the sovereignty of a country itself and its roots, its culture,
the lineage,
history.
Yeah.
Yes. And people said, $40 billion for people. First, before to welcome anyone, and we would love to help other people, but the people of France are starving, as well as in Belgium. It's the same thing. I was watching Belgium. It's the same thing. They did the yellow vest over there too. And
in the United States, there was always the argument that there's all these homeless people, but yet a lot of the money was going toward immigrants that needed education, and they got everything as a priority over the Americans. And I know this because I worked for a foundation. Actually, it was called the Fireman Foundation, and they were the gentleman used to be the CEO of Reebok, and so he was supporting an effort to help single mothers. And in that effort, we started looking at the demographics and the amount of money that was going towards, certain people, and single mothers. Of course, they couldn't make any money, and I helped raise thousands for that organization, and don't regret it at all. But I did see that so much money that there was, the immigrants at that time were considered a priority. And the people that, whose families worked hard and helped build that nation, were kind of on the back burner. And so there was this attitude that, the child is the stepchild, that we don't really care that you grew up here. This is, your family's family, help make the nation great. We're just going to give it away. We want to know what is that all about? So there's some kind of weird amalgamation, kind of a blending of there's an agenda. But what exactly is the agenda? And they say, well, they need to have, some of these third world countries need to have opportunity. Well, some of them have beautiful land, and they have, there's a lot of Europeans that have gone over to Africa, and there's a lot of culture there, and they can help build things up. A lot of people, like I look at South America, the same thing. A lot of the people want to come up here, and I say, wow, the land down there is beautiful, and there's so much of it. The cost of living's really low, and you can have a whole bunch of Americans going to South America instead. What are they? But see, it has nothing to do with any of this. There is another agenda there, and the agenda is to destroy. It's not to. It's to make every nation that is not third world into a third world nation. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, other than they want everyone impoverished.
Well, this is the thing. Their goal of these people in power, and I'm not talking about Macron or that, these are just puppets, okay? I'm talking about the puppeteers, which are not human, definitely. This is an alien war against humanity. I'm not joking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I really feel that the war is not between Democrats, Republicans, Trump, this, that. It's not about that. It's humans against non-human. It's
right. It's the war of the worlds.
Yeah.
It's Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. They're hitting us with lasers from the sky. They're destroying people without any consciousness. And we're just, looking around saying, what do we do next? Should we go hide in some cave somewhere? Or are we supposed to go underground? Or should we plan on the apocalypse? You know how many movies are out there about the apocalypse?
Oh,
probably more in 1 year than there has been in 20.
Yeah, more people look at these movies, the more energy they can. They need to fuel these agendas, and humans have some amazing skills that they're not aware of. They can co-create literally by thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. So, they're using our energy to destroy us.
Right. Or trying to get us to the point where we're in agreement. Remember, we're not supposed to consent. That we're in agreement to this agenda, that we have no value, and that we are supposed to accept this. Exactly. And this whole thing of we are here on this planet, and we are just at the verge of becoming a galactic species. We are just at the verge of, with our advanced tech, that people don't even have any idea of some of the advanced technology that's out there right now. And the ability that we have to travel, time travel, age regress, all of these amazing things that only the elite want to be privy to. There's only a handful that can afford to do some of the things that we're talking about. And so if the human race advances to this level, then we become a galactic species and no longer subjected and subservient. But they're trying to block this from happening. Instead of emerging into the power of who we are, they're trying to tell us we are nothing and that robots can replace us. But what they don't realize is they are already replaced, as they have their advanced tech in their body already, and keeping themselves prolonged in age and taking their supplements or body enhancements, that they are already being replaced. Their soul is being wiped out in the process. Yeah. But we're not consenting to that.
No.
That's not what we've bought into. And we did not come to this planet for that type of agreement. Our agreement is the earth was given to humanity to be here to thrive. The resources were for us, not for all the extraterrestrials, that want to come through as if they're human, shape-shifting into human form, and then manipulating us and then telling us that we're nothing more than cattle. And so that's what we have. You have to say no. And this is not against, rebellions against nation or whatever.
No.
It really isn't. These are sensible, reasonable people, hardworking people. And so we're trying to sort this out. The battle is going on in the astral field. This is where the battle is happening. And they're trying to launch something else here. And so why are we talking about this? The mainstream news is talking about some of it. And getting different perspectives from whether it's Europe and the US. But I could see, Chris, that you're impassioned by this because this is your homeland, and you're seeing something so beautiful. The farmers, the grassroots, everything that was lovely about these beautiful countries, and what they're doing.
Yes, I mean, and it's not just. For me, it's not just Belgium or France. I mean, I see myself, of course, as a human citizen of the world. I mean, I see this on a bigger picture, and you said something very important. It's true. What's happening down here, just reflection of what's happening up there. The war, you said, yeah, it's a war. It's alien. I mean, there's a lot happening up there. Let's just say the battle down here start really up there. And this is why we are working. I mean, there's a lot of beings involved here that are helping to clear, I would say, the power source on these different dimensions that are fueling these agendas down here. Most of these alien groups have foot soldiers, boots on the ground down here too. So it's funny for me when I see what's going on here in this country, in the US, and then in Europe, and then we discuss what's going on up there in the other dimensions. I can see that every time there is something that's cleared, removed up there, there's almost like a few days, a few weeks later, I can see the change happening down here too. It's like almost like there's a little delay, but it's happening as well. I can clearly feel the human collective consciousness starting to slowly wake up. They're not completely aware, especially, well, here we have a lot of information on the alternative media, and there's a lot really you can go on and have information. In Europe, it's way more controlled, and the French people don't have the advantage that they speak English. Most of the time they only speak one language, which is French. So they literally live in a fishbowl. But it's amazing to see that even if they don't have a lot of information out through the alternative media, there is still that shift going on their consciousness. I mean, for me, it's fascinating. It's almost like they're still searching for what's really happening. They feel something. They don't know what it is. It seems on the rational mind, on a 3D level, it seems that, yes, we just want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be able to feed our kids and enjoy life and have the comfort that we deserve as human. But it's deeper than that. And that for me is in some way give me a lot of hope and a lot of joy in my heart, because I can see that the work done by on other levels might start to pay down here too. So we are shifting, and you're right, we're really at the edge of entering on in the galactic community, which is unbelievable, and this is a rightful place as a human, but we need to reclaim stuff. And like you say, do not consent, do not agree, should down, still delete all these programs and reclaim our sovereignty on a personal level at first, and then help. Of course, it will help. We're going to have more help to do so, but nobody's going to come and save us. It's our planet. We are the one in charge down here, so we need to make a choice, and it's happening. Right. Just the beginning. But I feel that the power in place are shifting slowly. You know, it's not done yet. There's still a lot of battles to go on, but you can start to see things going on now. The only thing I'm keeping an eye on is to make sure that it will not be recuperated. You know, because I've seen it so many times. There is a movement going on, and then you know, they recuperate it and then bring it back to what it was. So it seems that in France they're saying that won't happen, but you know, we never know. So we have to continue working and making sure to remove
I know
as much.
some of us are finding ourselves doing, you know, this is a time for super soldiers too, those that find themselves in the dream space in the astral, actually going in and protecting and supporting at this time. And we did have a bit of that conversation. I don't know, Chris, if you would like to share, and if you don't, I respect that. But I know that other people have been contacting me and saying that they're seeing themselves in pivotal locations there to support in different places.
Yeah. I had. You mean the one when I was in Paris?
Yes.
Yeah.
So recently you said you had a dream.
Yeah, it's, you know, that moment. It's not really a dream. It's when you wake up and then you're in between that wake state and sleepy state, right? Mm-hmm. And I could clearly see myself in Paris. And because I know Paris very well, I've been working there too. So I was in Paris and I could see myself walking or flying very fast, going from one building to another building. Was with other beings, I guess. I was not alone, and we could see there were like kind of demons, Draco, on the roofs and different locations all around, and I could see the protest going on. All right, and we could see that all these beings, Draco / demons, same thing anyway, were fueling the aggressivity and in the same time wanted this to degenerate in something that wouldn't serve the purpose that these people have for a start. So we were using different, divine technology, I would say, to take them out. And there was a battle going on. And I could clearly see while that was happening, the people in the street were there, the yellow vest, but they couldn't see, of course, what was happening. But we could see them.
So you're often mentioned battling with the Dracos, the Draconians.
Yeah. And then for some reason, I mean, it was wild. That's all I can say. It was really wild because it was incredible to see that while these people down there had no clue what was happening. You know, they see these kids looting coming from the projects, you know, like they have in Paris. They have these projects, and these kids were also putting these yellow vests to loot, you know, do new lootings of shops and breaking windows, and you know, they had no real purpose to be there. Plus, some factions were like extreme right or extreme left that were there to destroy and create, you know, confusion and anarchy. On the 3D level, you think, okay, yeah, it's political. But on that level, it made sense that obviously they were fueled, connected, controlled, I don't know, by these Dracos, demons. They looked like demons, but I know they were not just. They were. I think pretty much they were Dracos, and some also from underworld. It seems some beings had some. I mean, they were definitely not even human shape, not even, you know, like a standing, you know, like a human standing at all. They were like weird shapes, but I could see them trying to energetically influence that aggressivity and at the same time feed from it.
Yeah.
So while they were protesting down there, the team was cleaning out all these beings. So that's what I say, that it is not just on the 3D level. They're on different dimensions. There are definitely a lot of factions involved.
This is an aspect of super soldier work. Because people wonder, well, you know, my super soldier, do you have memories like this of actually participating and trying to protect and save? Last night or early morning, they kept on showing me various locations where there was a being there, and I kept on going after this being and taking out this some kind of a device that was in the brain of this being, and I'd take it out, and then there were robots there and everything, and I collapsed. I broke this device, and I kept on seeing it in different dimensions. It kept bringing me to different places, and when I'd find it, I'd destroy it. It was this advanced AI. And then there was a point where I saw this, it looked like a butterfly, but it wasn't. And I grabbed a hold of it, and I destroyed that as well. So you find that you're actually in a space where you're helping, you're working, you're doing your job. As you said, you were moving really fast. Some people know that as like the Kruger runners, but it could be, other things as well, where, you're kind of there to assist dimensionally. And there is a battle going on. Before there's any kind of battle here, there's a battle already going on elsewhere. That's what brings in that tension, and we in the earth then can feel it. So
I don't know. It was connected to. I know Jericho did a call a few weeks ago, and it seems a lot of beings have answered that call. So I don't know if it's connected to that.
Jericho's quite powerful, and he'll communicate with me. He has his missions. I just discovered someone else that was involved with some missions because of some of the timelines were all messed up, and they were trying to help. And Rodan came back to me and said, it's a good thing that the timelines are messed up. He says, because now we're able to go through each one and find out what each problem is. And so he's sorting through it in the process.
Good.
And so people, if you don't know who Rodan is, if you'd have to listen to the Andronicus transmissions, but also he is also known as Odin. And he has a lot to do with what's going on now to try to help and protect us as well. But, they don't interfere in our political experience, but if there are intruders off-world, he does come in and assist us. But I'm finding that more and more of us are joining in the battle, whether it's in the dream space or whether it's kind of in another kind of in-between space where you're somewhat awake. So interesting times, very, very interesting times.
It is.
Are there any last thoughts and ideas? Because I'm sure that there's probably going to be more that comes up with this, but just like the issue with California, we want to bring in the information, share with people what's going on, and provide ideas. So any last thoughts, Chris?
Really what it comes to for me is there are really two choices done here, is or you are in service to others or in service to selves, and that makes a huge difference. I saw in a movie just a few weeks ago someone, it was called the Silent Warrior, and there is a part where a gentleman says to a young kid, the biggest reward of all is to be in service to others. And for me, there is nothing more true than that. So at the end of the day, it's important that everybody make a clear choice, and help will come. Rodan or Shiva or all these amazing beings can hear you. Yeah,
Andronicus helped stop a nuclear event over in Hawaii, and we have proof from that from the ACIO.
Yeah.
And so they will step in. They're going to try their best to assist us, but they can't interfere. No. It's time for us to step up to the plate, as much as we can, and be galactic warriors, protectors of the planet. Do what you can, and I believe in all of you, and I know that we're here at this time for this reason, for this purpose. We don't have to limit ourselves any longer. We can kind of spread our wings and be here to help and save and support. But humanity is a time of remembering who they are, that they're divine, connected to the divine, and that they have insight, and they have abilities that they had no idea because they were repressed so early on in their age. But it's time to reawaken. and come back into the fold and return back to what you remember. Your souls have been here many, many times, and many of you have lived off-world in different civilizations. This is nothing new. It's not a big deal. So we don't have to accept any scenario if we know that it's being manipulated by a dark side. We can always, step up to the challenge and just even with intention, meditation, and so forth, come in and let's all do our part. No one or two people are going to do this. Exactly. And it's going to require mass consciousness and also sharing information, which helps people to awaken to what actually is going on. And with truth is power.
And I remember what Rodin said, this planet has a divine purpose, as well as the humans. So, I mean, there is so much reward once everything, once everybody step up their game and reclaim their freedom altogether. I mean, it's a wonderful adventure waiting for us. I'm very excited about that.
So am I. Well, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate you joining me today. And I was going to have this as a special report, but I think I'm going to put this on Androna Talks. I want to keep that information in there because this is a bigger story. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all our supporters. Thank you for those. I kindly appreciate your help in Patreon and some of the donations that keeps us going. And please spread the word. This is what it's all about. Have a good day, and thank you again, Chris, for your time.
Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you so much.
You have been listening to Androna Talks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Errol Morocco and visit her website at www.readingsbyariel.com.